Hey there team, welcome back to the channel, welcome back to some more Hardspace Shipbreaker. Where were we? Where are we? Do this silly car thing.
Hi, it looks like you're trying to operate on your ship. Would you like help with that?
Not ready. I need a fuse.
To place a component, you have to have all...
Shush. Alright, start. Hang on. Do I have any bloody points? 51 points. Let's go. Surely that can do something. Who's that? Range? That sounds good. 18 points. Probably not going to do a lot for me, to be honest. Let's get some repairs going. Yeah. Alright. Alright. Where were we? We were dragging big chunks of the ship into the bin to just see what we could get away with. It seems we can get away with quite a bit. Apparently there's a fuse on this ship somewhere. Okay. We will go looking. Tethers.
Morning, folks. Starting the shift clock. Now.
Another day, another dent in the debt. Anyone want to race me? If you don't quit racing, you're gonna get yourself killed for real someday.
Oh my goodness.
This is Hal. Just wondering, how much time is spent chatting on average in a day here? It's just the crew checking in with one another from time to time. No harm in that. Well, as you know, the LYNX employee handbook says that avoiding chatter makes profits fatter.
That's true.
Talking to each other is good for productivity, actually.
Don't.
Well,
Why
we'll
are you
look at the
snapping back at
performance
the
reports
water?
later and see, I guess.
Yeah, fair enough.
People are people. Doesn't mean we don't take our work seriously, Rhodes.
What are you doing?
Steiner, right?
Yeah.
No need to talk back.
Is this your first
Al,
fucking
It's
job?
all good, right? Let's everybody just get back to work.
Fine. I'm out of here.
Oh my god.
Good, good. You should all focus on your work.
So it is interesting though, like
Salvage deposit secured. Credit
now
awarded.
it's a tough thing to make assumptions. I try my honest best to assume the best, right? But it would seem
Salvage accepted. Credit
my
applied.
assumption at first was that Lou is a self-insert for a stupid writer, right? That's how it feels. It's what happens when I have to deal with these people every single day on Twitter. Like, I despise Twitter. You want to lose faith in humanity. Interact professionally with bloody the gaming industry and the Twitter space. They truly have no life. Except to sit on Twitter trying to farm likes with shitty takes about how, oh god, wrong button. Fuck, I thought I pressed that. About how hard their life is, you know? But I digress. So that's my assumption, is that Lou is sort of, in the eyes of the writing room, Lou is the fucking hero of the story. However, it is constructed in such a way, with all the other characters being kind of reasonable. Like, even the Inspector dude. I'm not on Team Inspector dude, alright? Let's just be clear. But he just seems like a nice enough dude doing a shit job. And it's sort of like, if anyone's in real life has dealt with any of this shit before, you just nod and smile and you be polite, and then the guy's gonna fuck off, finish doing his audit in the next couple of days. Like, that's what normal people do. There's people that have lived in the real world and don't create scenarios in their head and then put them on Twitter and then get reinforced by other psychopaths. So it's just strange to me, and I'm very confused because Lou is so obviously the odd one out, and I can't help but assume it's because the writers see her as a hero in an unfair world, whereas I think a lot of the player base, a lot of people that are exposed to this story are just going to see normal people trying to get on with their job, and Lou being a squeaky wheel, creating fucking problems for herself, and, you know, all this, like the talking back on the channel. What are you doing? Why would you do that? You know, the dude's not even overtly doing anything wrong. He's just, he's asking, well, you know, how much do we chat in this channel? And a normal fucking person with their head screwed on, that doesn't want to lose their job, plus doesn't give a fuck about it all that much, would go, all right, okay. That's what this guy is. This guy is a bit by the book, right? He's, you know, it seems like a harmless enough question, and it is presented in such a way, but like, you know, he's just asking. You can just, in fact, it gave us the perfect example of the perfect response, which was Weaver saying, look, we don't talk too much, we just do our morning check-in and get on with it, right? And so like I almost am feeling baited by how overtly fucking terrible a character Lou is, that it has to be intentional. It really has. The fact that you can write normal characters, the dude with the radio interruption, the happy-go-lucky labory chick, the leader of the band, Weaver, you know, all of these characters are reasonable and realistic people, and Lou is a caricature of a Twitter user. So I don't know. I don't know what to tell you.
Account credited.
Like, I'm almost feeling baited. It's almost like Lou is a fake character on purpose. Maybe the writers are winking at the camera and they realise that this sort of personality is just kind of lives in La La Land. I don't know. It's just interesting.
Transferring credits.
Oh, I'm losing O2. I suppose to bookend it, because again, I don't want to rant and whinge about the story so much, but I'm happy to unpack it. There's no O2 in here. You know, like, let's sort of analyse it, address it, but I'm not necessarily wanting to whinge. But if it was that Lou was just a shit character, which he kind of is, but you would assume it wouldn't happen in a vacuum, right? You would assume that all the other characters would be really poorly written and, you know, misguided and insufferable, but they're not. That's the weird thing. Every single other character is kind of realistic and harmless and reasonable. You know, dare I say, well-written characters. So that's what's really throwing me, is why is she so poorly written, if not intentionally? I don't know. Unfortunately, one of the answers might be that the writers live in such a bubble that, again, they think that her character is a reasonable person. Okay. We've done all right gutting this so far. Might crack the shell. See, I don't have the electro scanner, so if there are fuses, I don't know where they are. I mean, we can crack the floor easily enough. Might just do that, see if we can slip this thing out. Anyway, I'd be curious what you think. Again, I had my come to Jesus moment. I don't want to whinge about the story and it pushing an agenda. I just want to assess it on its merit. And like I said, it's just Lou. Lou's the only problem. So strange. I think some people said that they changed the voice actor for Weaver and they were upset about that. I don't give a fuck. He sounds like... he's kind of just a generic dude, you know? It's not like he has a Bart Simpson super obvious voice or something. He's just some dude with a southern drawl. I can't even tell that they changed the voice actor. Sorry, not sorry. How are we going to do this? Alright, so there's our airlock at the back. Yeah, maybe we... Maybe that is the move. Take the back wall off. Alright. But yeah, color me curious. Like, on a weird level, I'm curious where it's going now. Because I am starting to slowly, wishfully hope that Lou just gets fired out the airlock and then it's a happily ever after story for everyone else involved. You know, fingers crossed. Alright, that's using the old noggin. Plus, we're playing Deserts of Karak, which was made by this same studio. And I haven't really played much of the original Homeworld, and it's on the list, we'll get to it. But honestly, I'm really enjoying Karak. And the story is pretty paper thin. It's chase a MacGuffin, whatever. But the banter and all that, it's all well done. You know, if generic, but that's the thing. Who gives a fuck if a video game story is generic, right? Short of, you know, throw your hands up. Hands up in the chat. Like, would you not rather just a generic, passable story, but with a solid gameplay loop, as opposed to kind of fucking the story up? You know? It is interesting, because I would still argue, if you're in it for an interesting story, I used to say go to Netflix, but you shouldn't do that either, because that's all a bit garbage now. You can tell how the gravity-fed shit writers end up on Netflix now. You can see it, it's so obvious.
5 minutes remaining.
Well, no, they trickle even further down and they end up in game development. But just read literature, you know? You realise there's more books of phenomenal literature, or even like history books. I know I sound like such a fuddy-duddy, but there are more of those that will give you absolute value as far as story and just general investment in a narrative, let's say, than you can read in your physical life on Earth, right? So, honestly, I'm really quite short on it. To the point where it's like, I think it's not worth shooting your shot on trying to make some sort of super outstanding story in a video game. Just give us a generic story. Like, on a certain level, it's like peeling it back. Give us a serviceable story, a couple of splash screens, a couple of throwaway lines, give us the motivation, and then let the game stand on the merit of its gameplay loop. Now, that doesn't necessarily become a problem with Hardspace, because the gameplay loop is fucking solid, right? But this is often why I have issues with walking sims being like visual novel adjacent, where they essentially, the rant that I used to go on quite a lot back in the day was to make an immersive sim, something like that Arcane Studios makes. You know, you Dishonored, you Prey, even Deathloop, right? But making a game where you essentially interact at quite a sort of high level of fidelity with the environment to solve the problem. Sort of almost sandbox in a way, but less like if sandbox is about you creating stuff, like here's all the tools, you know, it's basically Unreal Engine. Fucking here's all your Minecraft blocks, build whatever the fuck you feel like. If that's what sandbox is, immersive sim is more like, here's a problem to solve and we're going to give you a shitload of tools to solve it. But as you can understand, like if a linear, even this game, you know, it's relatively linear, cut the ship to bits. You know, there's only so many permutations and paths to success you can take. Whereas with an immersive sim, it's the whole point is that it's supposed to be bordering on infinitesimal. Like they give you as many systems as you possibly can. Now, obviously, it's not infinite, but that's the point. That's the spirit of it. So what are you talking about, Scarlet? It's a good question. Let me recover. Essentially, making an immersive sim, which is a single-player game, and ultimately has a bazillion mechanics, 1% of which most players are only ever going to engage with. It's a difficult value proposition for a studio. And labour, money, everything, right? When you're going to make something where only 1% of the game ever gets played by most players, like, that's a hard pitch in the sales meeting, in the board meeting. And then you have walking sims, which in my estimation take some aspects of the immersive sim and they actually throw out, they cost cut it. It's like if your budget audit team
1 minute till the yard goes
had
dark,
access to
Cutter.
your immersive sim. It's like, right, we're going to cut this, we're going to cut this, we're going to cut this. What do we actually need? We need a narrative and walk through an environment, and that's it. And to sort of bring this full circle and put a bit of a pin on it, the reason I'm talking about that is the problem with walking sims is they have now become, I feel like that's the genesis, that's where they came from, was a cheap attempt to move an immersive sim. That's where they started, and where they are now is something devoid of gameplay, trying to stand on its story and story alone. And like I said, chances are in this industry, it's not going to go that way. Did I upgrade my O2 tank? How come I'm surviving this long? That's crazy. Oh, or did I grab O2? So, yeah, look, younger me was actually pretty big on, oh, games are art and the medium can be more, and, you know, I really, you know, it was very masturbatory in my youth about the idea of story in video games and trying to push the medium through it.
Good morning, Shipbreaker.
And I'm like, no, that's not the strength
your
of the
daily
medium.
wake-up call.
The medium is it's a game. I say this often, there's nothing wrong with visual novels, you can enjoy them, but more often than not, they should be in a different category. They should almost be on Audible or Spotify or something, right? If it is a straight visual novel, which is to say it's a story with pretty art, but it's a PowerPoint presentation that you click through, that's not a fucking game. It might be the best visual novel you've ever played in your life, but if it's not actually a game, why is it on Steam? Why is it in the game conversation, right? Anyway, I'm jumping around from point to point, but it's almost like that's exactly how I behave on this channel. Do you reckon we can buy more upgrades? 41 points, probably can. There we go. I don't even know what this is. Cooldown? Okay, sure. So yeah, I my emphasis on story has done like a flip, right? Let's keep going with this shit. We've come so far. To the point where I have been trained to kind of have disdain for story in video games. Because it's more than 50% strike rate is bad.
You bet I do.
Is that like a cutter you've worked with?
Well, not exactly. She's more like a legend among shipbreakers.
Right.
She was so strong, she could pull panels apart with her bare hands.
Unlikely.
That sounds not real.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Well, that may be. But there was an Agrafena Romanoff in the records, so there must be something to it. In
Okay.
fact, there are more cutter legends out there.
Yeah, I heard of the Nem, the original Burgun. I read she was adamant about never getting a spare. Lost limbs to avoid it.
Don't blame her, really. I don't even know what spare I'm on.
That's okay, Kato. That's what they're there for, after all.
Yeah, exactly. It's part of the job. That's okay. You know, like for all my shit canning, that little stab was interesting because it brushed up against what we were talking about before. In fact, I think I raised exactly that issue. Oh, let's do it. Let's do this. Is, you know, you wake up with a cold in the morning. You know, you got the sniffles. Oh, better throw myself in the furnace and clone myself because that clone won't have the flu. You know what I mean? It's sort of brushed up against it just there. The idea of people maybe stubbornly trying to avoid using it.
Salvage secured. Applying credit.
I wouldn't be surprised if the company didn't intercede then. It's like, listen, you're trying to cut with one arm.
Salvage deposit accepted.
We're going to force clone you. It's probably in the contract. And And, well, like, I know I'm getting into a fake hypothetical, but I wonder if that even comes up in the story, something like that. And it's like, no, the cloning system is something you signed up to, you agreed to, as a part of the actual hazard mitigation of the workplace. If you're going to refuse to engage with the cloning process because you damaged your current body and you can't do your job correctly, then what are we going to do with you then? We should probably sack you, to be perfectly honest. It makes an interesting, compelling point. So yeah, there's some interesting stories to be asked in here. To me, that's the essence of good sci-fi, is you can come up with a kind of ludicrous plot point, right? It doesn't really make sense. How am I going to cut this roof off? There we go. And then you explore that hypothetical. You can poke and prod and ask questions and go, oh, isn't that interesting? But it's, you know, it's more about, here's a scenario, let me present, oh fuck, here we go. Do I have to flush this or something? Or... Okay, well, at least the pipes are turned off now. Now, are we going to fucking clip them again? Hang on. Yeah, so, you know, that wasn't so bad. That was interesting. I wonder if they talk about that chick not replacing her limbs. Oh no, that was someone else. There was the strong chick, and then they were talking about the person that replaced their limbs. Most of this is furnace. That's not. Bugger it, let's do it.
Processing object. Applying credits to account.
Let's find out.
Other supplies are low.
Yeah, so it kind of kills me, as I say it out loud, that I used to really embrace what a story could be, pretentious as that could be. There's nothing wrong with like Dead Space, right? For example, I love Dead Space. And that's just a B-grade bloody thriller romp with a couple of twists thrown in, right? And that's not a condemnation of the writer's room on that game. It's just standard fare. Nothing really wrong with it. It's good. Why can't we go back to that? And I think it's because you have this weird culture of like, I'm not a writer, but I'd like to think if I was a writer, you just sort of try and write the story well on the merit of its own, as opposed to, it almost feels like, and this is just from a consumer side looking at it, trying to interpret it, but it almost feels like there's this, it's less about writing a good story and more about putting something on your LinkedIn profile or in your portfolio. It's like, oh, I wrote this genre-defining jump forward. You know, so it's more about the writer on a meta level getting some sort of acknowledgement for their work product, as opposed to, let's say, just having good work product first. Does that make sense? I suppose. And it's kind of perverse when you think about it. I mean, don't have to think too hard about it. Can you go in the bloody thing, please? I want to watch this happen, but I'm going to suffocate. Like, if you consider, because the ego on some of these writers is insane, but if you consider, say, an artist of old, of yesteryear. Oh, hey, we got past 4. I could have stopped there anyway. That's fine. I wasn't paying attention because I'm ranting too much. But an artist, you know, Michelangelo making David, that sort of thing. Do you think the artist, especially the true artist, the dude that you aspire to be, the guy that's the top of the game, do you think he really gives that much of a fuck about prestige? Do you think prestige is what comes first? You know, they're not oblivious to their prestige for their output, But the
LYNX would
point
like
is
to share
the work
following
itself,
inspirational
right?
message.
The art.
The greatest reward in
I
life is the chance
suppose
to
the
work
work
hard
product,
at
as I
work
like to
worth
call it, because I'm
doing.
no artist, but I am familiar with taking pride in work product, right? Oh, look at this! What's this? Unlocked a sticker. Fucking lucky me. Yeah. So I'll just finish my thoughts on that because I think I'm onto something there. So yeah, I would think that an artist of value, right, is one that fuck you, fuck everyone, fuck society. I don't give a fuck what they think about me or anything like that. I purely care about the work product, the art that I'm pursuing, for better or for worse, right? It could be hot garbage, who cares? But that's not what matters. It's not about popular appeal. It's not about prestige. It's about the pursuit of the product itself. And I feel like watching writers, and I hope this analogy comes through, but watching writers in the game space, and I can sort of see it happening in Netflix and all that, but I'm much more familiar with gaming because that's my career, my industry, dare I say. It just seems so overt that more than 50%, so majority, so not all of them obviously, but the majority of writers these days in gaming, it seems that they're more interested in the rubber stamp, the pat on the back, as I said, the LinkedIn profile, the prestige of writing a story for a game or whatever, or trying to subvert or trying to come up with some new, undermine the hero's journey or whatever, as opposed to just making a solid story that can be enjoyed by everyone kind of equally. Like Last of Us 2 is an interesting question. Maybe we should play through that on the channel. I followed it, I understand it, I only played a little bit of it, but the fact that one of the prime motivators in telling that story seems to be subversion, like it's trying to push back on convention and tell a story that bucks convention to try and make you rethink about how the hero's journey works and who's the real good guy and all that sort of stuff. So I understand the motivation, but wouldn't it have been better just to actually write a story in service of the actual world setting that it's in? That's more organic, because it doesn't even feel super organically tied to the first game. It feels disjointed. It's in the same setting, there's some of the same characters, but the story it takes this pivot that feels less organic and in service of the work product, to tie a bow on this finally, and more in service of trying to do something different and shocking and interesting, which is not what someone wants in any good story. But I digress. What would I know? I'm just a dickhead who plays video games. Anyway, let me know what you reckon. I hope you didn't take this the wrong way as me ranting too much about how bad the story is in Hardspace, because it wasn't terribly bad. Right? I would go so far as to say the story's not actually terrible in Hardspace. It's just that one of the characters seems overtly out of place. Actually, a thought just occurred to me before we finish this is, I wonder if they have split writers, writing different characters or something. Here I am assuming it would be one person writing the whole thing, but what if one person wrote Lou and other people wrote the other characters or whatever? Because that would explain the disparity and why it doesn't fit. I wonder. It'd be weird, but it would explain it. Anyway, team, thanks again for joining me. Might just leave it there for the time being, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.